Hey there guys, DMO73 here, bringing you the top 4 match of Caturday here. We are seeing, on the left is Sia Yang, we saw him before, versus Chris Durand, playing that Bloody Grimm variant, Red, White, Burn Grimm. And on the right, we have Brian Lee, a local guy who plays at Gamerscon a lot of time. He is also actually playing Oddgro Grimm. Interesting thing to note is he was given the deck that day by Matt Cosmore of Force of Will US, because this is his second ever Force of Will event, and he didn't know what to play. Cosmore built him the deck really quick, said that it was really good and he should give it a shot, and here he sits at top 4. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get into this. So we have Brian on the right and Sia on the left. So see that quick early game March Hares we've seen a lot of in these videos. This matchup's going to be fairly similar to what we saw with Sia and Durand, because I believe Brian and Durand are running the exact same list, because Cosmore helped them create it, because they worked with Cosmore to create it, but I don't really know for sure. So I'll try and let the action kind of speak for itself and just kind of speak about what's going on. If I see anything kind of unique, then I'll kind of step in and talk about that. Cheshire Cat from Brian wants to try to set up those top decks for his odd cards. So we get a quick swing from Brian with the March Hare. That's going to go through. So we have 35 for Sia and full 40 for Brian. Black Forest trying to swing at the March Hare because he wants to just go ahead and deal with it right now. See that Cheshire get shuffled back in for a responsive block from Brian. I mean, it's powerful in the sense, I mean, Hunter the Black Forest is great in the fact that it can trade with March Hare. It's one of the, I think, to be honest, one of the downsides of March Hare is that 300 defense means that a lot of other 1-drops can block and still kill it, even though it has that 500 attack. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great for Oddgro, so it has that 1-drop 500, but it's still something that's easily traded with, which is a problem sometimes, especially in mirrors, or you know, any deck that has a high slew of 1-drops available. Looks like saw an Etna getting grabbed. One thing to note is that Cheshire Cat, you can put any card back in your hand, back on top of the deck. It doesn't have to be between the 2 you draw. So if he really wanted to, he could have kept that Etna and put something else back up, but that's his choice. So we see that Thunder come out from Brian, and then another March Hare. Sia decides to take that as well. He's not really necessarily very worried, I think, about that 500 damage, because he knows that he has a burn package to be able to quickly close the gap, and he's more worried about using those Cheshire Cats later against some of the more heavy threats, maybe things like Etna or Blazer or Oz. So he's not really worried about the 500 hits right now. At least if I was in that situation, that's probably why I wouldn't be blocking. I see a Split Heaven and Earth. I see an Oz. It looks like Double Thunder. You're going to see that Oz come out. This puts Sia in a good position to be able to start dealing with those March Hares, because he now has a blocker that can kill the March Hare. And as I've said before in previous videos, I'll say it again. Oz, Little Dread, Glinda, all those cards are not really things that you want to Dream of Some Wonderland, because it just gives your opponent more access into their deck. because they'll just be able to play it again and get another enter effect. So See that Crimes and Punishment come out from Sia. Probably, I would imagine, because he already has some Thunders in hand, and so he just wants to have some versatility in his hand. See a Purifying Fire in there. A second Crime and Punishment. Ooh, and a Telefairy Tail. That's gonna come into play later. Try. He sees that Etna lock down the Oz. Pretty good again to be able to want to try to get those swings in. Looks like both of those attacks. Sia's going to let both of those attacks go through potentially. He does. He lets both of them go through. So that puts down Sia to 20 life. So it's 20-40 right now. Brian is in a pretty good position right now, especially with that Etna locking down the Oz, and even with the burn stuff. I mean, even with that Split Heaven and Earth, he's only going to take 600, so he's quickly widening the gap to a point that burn might not be able to close it fast enough. They got Thunder to deal with one of the March Hairs. Probably gonna leave up that Crime and Punishment for another one, or we might see that Telefairy Tail. That could be definitely an option. Sia did play Pied Piper of Hamlin, so a Hamlin right now could be quite effective. Yeah, we're gonna see that Telefairy Tail. My only wonder is what he's gonna grab. He does decide to grab an Oz, so this is very interesting. So in this situation, I would have thought that that a Pied Piper would have been what to grab, because he could have locked down the Etna and then have something that could easily block the March Hare next turn. But he could have just wanted to get more searching out of his deck to keep those 1-drops alive. So this again is. I think Sia really had a solid handle on this deck and really knew what he was doing in terms of the mirror, or in terms of against the Oddgro Grimm matchup, especially having played Durand earlier that day. Going up to 5 mana. Cards are moving a mile a minute. See that little Dread? He did play a list that ran the one little Dread in the main. I wouldn't be surprised if that little Dread came out right about now. I mean, it's an instant answer to that Oz, and Sia is currently tapped out. Little Dread coming out to get its enter effect to burn the active Oz. For that, give it plus 600, minus 600, which then would immediately kill it. So again, as I said, Brian seems to be in a very good position right now. He still has 1 mana up. This is starting to get to the point where maybe those Cheshire Cats are going to start getting shuffled in. Deal for Blazers on top. Yep, Cheshires are going to have to start taking damage. Taking damage and getting shuffled back in order to keep Sia at a healthy distance. attempt to swing in with the Etna. That block goes through as well. Probably a smart play. Sai doesn't want to have to start discarding cards if Etna manages to get some swings in. See that on Marius. Get some flying going in there. I think this is going to be a very important turn for Sai to find that balance of controlling the board while at the same time being able to address the situation. See, Hunter and Black Forest. Tinkerbell. And then a Telefairy Tale. To attempt to tap down Little Dread the Fake Red Moon. So the question here is, does Brian Lee have the Dreams of Wonderland? It looks like he does. So I think Brian was confirming the placement of things. Again, this was only his second event, so he was still trying to figure some things out. Dreams of Wonderland is going to bounce that Piper back. A very common kind of snapback that Oddgro Grimm can have for decks that run things like Piper or Blazer, is just to let them go ahead and commit the mana to it and then just bounce it back anyway, because now all of that stuff's going to be able to untap. So now we see that Blazer come out in Brian Lee's hand. This does feel like it's been fairly one-sided. Just it seems like Brian really hit everything that he needed to right when he needed to, but doesn't mean we couldn't be in for a few surprises. When we see that Duel of Truth, I'd think that maybe Brian would try and use that to get some free damage, like to make sure an attack is going to go through. If a blocker gets declared, just Duel of Truth to kill that blocker before the attack starts actually resolving. A pretty neat trick that you can use. Just thinking about whether or not he wants to play the Oz. Good call playing that water mana. He wants to maximize his fire spells. So he's gonna get that search. Grab a Rapid Decay. Maybe he just wants to be done with that Tinkerbell outright. Saw a lot of Tinkerbells all day at this event get destroyed by those Rapid Decays. It's a very, very powerful card right now. Yep. As I said, this puts in Brian in a really good spot because he's got 2 mana up and obviously 2 spells to work with there. A Duel of Truth, a Blazer, and he's shuffling so fast I can't see what that third card is. Was it another Blazer? It's a second Blazer. So that was a very interesting play, the idea of using Duel of Truth right now as opposed to waiting for the swing. And also in trying to do that. So 700 damage to Sia. Sia understanding that because of that now he's going to have to discard a card. So the weirdness here, just a quick thing to point out, is that if Sia had, or if Brian had just used the Duel of Truth and just swung in with all three of those creatures, that would have been up. He actually had enough to do lethal. It would have been 2,000, which was all that life was left. But because he decided to kill off that Oz, now Sia still has 800 left. Don't really necessarily know if that's going to matter much for this next turn, but you know, if you want to try to close out games when you have the chance, especially when your opponent's tapped down completely, and then Sia just go ahead and offers the scoop at that point because he knows he's not going to be able to make that difference back up. So here we are in game 2. Sia is most likely going to be going first, I can only imagine. See, looks like Double Thunder, a Telefairy Tale, and something else that got mulligans. Draws into a Tinkerbell and a Crime and Punishment. Wasn't able to see on Brian's side of things. Brian, Lee, both of these men were excellent gentlemen, and so had a lot of really high character when they were playing their games. You saw that like handshake. I just really respect both of these guys for what they did and how they played their games all day. It's a very long day, could have easily tired anybody out, but these guys still behaved very professionally. So I think Brian right now is thinking about whether or not Rapid Decay or a Cheshire Cat is more important. He could play the Cheshire Cat and get some searching in, or he can try and just take care of that Tinkerbell right away. I think that was a really good idea to grab the Chesh, because now he's got access to that little dread that he can make use of faster, and guaranteed that little dread is going to be able to get used later. Little dread is just, in any kind of Grimm matchup that uses Oz, Little Dread is just a very superior card. Brian's trying to figure out whether or not he wants to take 600 from that Tinkerbell. Decides to block it, and then takes the 300 from the Hunter in Black Forest, taking him down to 37. So Sia is at 40, and Brian is at 37. So, very quick setup of a very powerful early game board for Sia. If this isn't kept in check, it could turn sour very quickly. Rapid Decay is only going to be able to take out one of those Tinkerbells, and it's going to leave Brian tapped out, which leaves Sia in a position to really be able to put pressure on right now. So we're seeing Sia going ahead and trying to just make that Tinkerbell really, really big before he makes any moves. One thing I noticed that a lot of Odd Grimm players were doing at the event is they were committing a lot to board before they were making their swings, like their attacks, and that could just be, you know, the background they come from or anything like that. There's an 1100 damage, by the way, for Brian, putting him down to 27. or sorry, 26. But one of the things that makes Oddgro Grimm so powerful is, especially based on what your opponent's board state is the idea of attacking first, using your spell lineup if you need to make sure those attacks go through, and then committing things to board, especially in the early game. It's very, very potent. I need to see... some mana should be tapped for that Dreams of Wonderland. A stone should have been tapped for that. Because it definitely wasn't during the upkeep phase. Because he didn't have any mana to spend during the recovery phase. I would imagine it's one of those hard scores. Could just be a kind of the in the moment kind of thing, but you gotta tap. You gotta produce your will before you can spend it on anything, and we just didn't see that here. So 300 damage, potentially, which is going to go through, putting Brian down to 23. We see that Glinda come out. I imagine we're probably going to see that Tinkerbell return. Yep, Tinkerbell's back on field, and then we're going to leave the one stone up, I think. Yep. So, this is the situation right now. It's very, very interesting. It's quickly getting away from Brian Lee. We'll see how he decides to come back. He goes ahead and plays that little dread to quickly try and kill the Glinda. I think at this point he's just hoping to survive one more turn to be able to make a comeback, and that Glinda is something that really makes him kind of nervous. At least that would be my thought. I don't really know what the purpose of Little Dread was in that instance. So we see Sia ditching that Oz, because he doesn't really need it right now, to grab Hamlet's Piper. I can expect that we're probably going to see a Glinda come out. It looked like Sia had a Glinda in his hand to be able to make his Tinkerbell unblockable and get, you know, at least 1,000 if not more damage in. Ooh, or not. All 5 is just gonna get tapped, and 1,000 damage is gonna go into Brian, putting him down to 13. So in the back and forth of both of these players having very quick games go in their favor, this is quickly pulling away for Sia to a point that Oddgro Grimm is just not going to be able to keep up, especially because of the burn package in Sia's deck. This puts him in a very good spot to just abandon the creature lineup altogether and just finish things off with burn. You know, 2 Purifying Fire would be a way that I would expect to see that happen. Just a lot of potential here. And Etna to lock down Tinkerbell and Piper. That's a good way to go about it. Maybe now's the moment when we're going to see that unblockable. It's actually pretty interesting. Oh, but then again, the unblockable isn't as important since Tinkerbell's currently locked down. So we're using change to indicate who's locking down who. This is something that happens a lot in Grimm mirrors. Both players are playing cards that just lock stuff down, and it gets very tricky to keep track of what is locking down what. So I can respect them trying to at least use something to be able to keep track of that. So Sia is pitching his own Etna, and I can see him trying to do what he's done before, is just to grab Oz's. See, double Thunder. Unless I did my math wrong, Brian should have had at least 300 life left after that. But maybe then he would just say, you know, I have Glinda unblockable for my Piper next turn. The life track total there right at the very end seems to have gotten away from me. But either way, Sia was in very good shape to win that game. So here we are. Winner of this is gonna go into top 2 of Caturday and have a chance at a full art Cheshire Cat. Very, very cool. Sia keeping everything. Not gonna mulligan a single card. Brian as well. Both really liking what they're starting with. So Brian's gonna be going first. Hunter Black Forest. 300 damage right off the bat against Sia. And then another 300 damage right back. That water. March Hare coming out, and then a quick Thunder from Brian to deal with that Hunter. Another 300 damage to Sia. So neither player is taking any chances. They want to close out this game as fast as possible. It was grinding a lot. The game 1 and game 2 ended very quickly, and the other ones in each other's favor. So they probably do not want to get into a point where they have to deal with that at all. So just doing whatever it takes to get damage in as fast as possible for both players. As I said, you know, Rapid Decay to deal with March Hares, Thunders. They both have a lot of options to be able to manage one another's low-cost creatures. So it'll almost come down to who can transition out of their low-cost creatures into their spell lineup faster / more effectively will probably win the game. And if anyone can win before the lockdown train begins, because that just turns into whoever plays the Piper or Etna last is the winner at that point in time. See, Aside to the Future, the sideboard card for Bloody Grimm. Very powerful card that I think is only going to get better with the new standby card rules. It's going to get splashed into a lot of different situations. Very, very, very good card. So I think Cosmo was trying to sit down to really pay attention at this point, so he hit the camera. It happens. It's no big deal. It is what it is. But so we have Tinkerbell and Glinda, or Tinkerbell and Cheshire Cat with tapped out stones for Sia. Seems like at this point in time, yeah, that is definitely that little blue phone you see in the corner talking with the 11:15 p.m. guys, that was the time that it was at when we were playing in this round. So top 4 was starting at, was in game 3 at 11:15 p.m. This is a very long day. So Cosmar's talking to them both about the current situation and about the fact that they might go to time on the round in top 4 and what exactly that means. We had a little bit extended round time for top 4. I believe we had 70 minutes, I think, and top 2 had 90 minutes. So Tinkerbell from Brian. Attempting to swing in with Oz. Cheshire Cat's gonna block that. Doesn't even want to have to worry about his Hunter getting stopped. We plays Rapid Decay and then swings in for 300 more damage. And then that Sign of the Future is going to get triggered. Because he owns 3 more creatures than his opponent. So if targets are being chosen, he's going to choose the Hunter in Black Forest and the Tinkerbell. He chooses to play Dreams of Wonderland. And Cosmo talking about the card because it was so unexpected for Brian to have to learn how to deal with that. So he plays his Dreams of Wonderland and then a second Dreams of Wonderland. Let's bounce them both to his hand. Now, this is the one thing that I'm gonna say was kind of weird, was just using those 2 Dreams of Wonderland just to bounce those 1-drops back. I feel like maybe the Tinkerbell was a good call to bounce back, but Hunter in Black Forest, I mean, it's a searchable swiftness. Like, he has the ability to search for it later, and so now Sai has a complete and total just ability to be able to just make use of his full mana to play whatever kind of creatures he wants. Play an Etna to lock down that Oz. Oh, look! Yeah, there you go, Etna to lock down that Oz. Can't get bounced, so that Oz is taken care of for at least a turn. Yeah, Cosmo knew that we were starting to get to the point where people were going to be locking each other down, so asking them to start tracking the locks. Matt Cosmo did a phenomenal job running the event. He was a very, very effective judge. He did a lot of really, really good work. So it was a very long day. He was very, very tired. But he put in a lot of really hard work, and I really respect what he did. So he's using that Hunter that he returned to his hand to search with Grimm. To grab his own Etna. As I said, the lockdown train is something that becomes very common very quickly in late games for Grimm mirror matches. And then, yep, Etna to lock down Etna. So we're going up to 5 mana. hard casting a Hamlin. I feel it. Hamlin to lock down the Etna. This is quickly turning into a turtling match. One that I believe that Sia has the advantage in because he has more things that lock things down. Unless Brian decided to keep all 3 of his Etnas or sided into some more Etnas. But I think that Sia has Etnas and Pipers. So I think that he probably can win the train ride. That is the lockdown train. So we see Oz coming out. Probably to grab a Dreams of Wonderland again, I can imagine. Or the Thunder. In this situation, I probably would have grabbed the Dreams of Wonderland to return an Etna, my lockdown Etna, to my hand at the end of Sia's turn. That way I could replay it during my turn and re-lock down everything. All, you know, with only one card. Thus eliminating the threat. And oh, he wanted to get rid of that lockdown, so he had the double Thunder. That makes sense too. Another Piper. Locking down Etna. Oh, locking down the Oz. At this point, he probably isn't as worried about the Etna since it's already come into play. So we've kind of hit that stalling point for both decks. It'll be interesting to see how each one of them decides to try to break out of it. My apologies. My dog's going nuts. Brian's moving in. So he knows that he has got to deal with that Piper. Otherwise, more and more stuff is just going to keep getting locked down. He does have access to that Etna now, but the thing is, I can't really do much when it hits the board. So it's not going to be able to help a terribly huge amount. Pitching the Glinda, very interesting choice for a Grim Search. Knowing that my opponent kind of seems to not have a ton of cards in his hand. Oh, he does. He has 4. And knowing that my Etna is going to get locked down anyway, I almost would have kept the Glinda. I think he's looking at Little Dread, hoping that it's a fairy tale. It is not, alas. Because if it was, then every Grimm player would be playing it. It is not a fairy tale. I almost feel like that Glinda would have been a good thing to save, and I almost would have gotten rid of the Tinkerbell. With the Glinda, I could have made the Etna unblockable, swung in, and forced Sia to discard a card, because that Etna is going to get locked down next turn anyway. But he can protect it with the Cheshire Cat. And then he still could have had that Glinda, or sorry, he still could have had the Etna that he just searched for, but he also could have had access to a spell cancel on the board. I think would have just been an overall more beneficial play, and would still leave him with plenty of mana open to respond during the next turn. So I see a Rapid Decay, split of... oh, no, that was the graveyard, so I don't know what Sia quite has in his hand right now. See a Tinkerbell... Oh, so yeah. Double Tinkerbell Etna. I just... just don't know. You see the Etna to lock down the Piper. And maybe Brian has a plan that I don't, I mean, obviously don't see, because he's the one playing, not me. But I just feel like that Glenda would have been a better option. Tinkerbell. And I can see it in the sense of like thinking that you then permanently answer the Piper as opposed to, you know, making a play and then expecting to get locked down. So I guess with his lineup that he had in his hand in terms of just monsters, like no spells whatsoever, getting the other, ditching the Glinda for the other Etna, I think was a fine call. So 700 more damage to Sai, putting him down to 24. To 37. We have a Tinkerbell on board. He decides to discard the Split Heaven and Earth. He knows that we're getting more into late game, and he's too low on life to really let Split Heaven and Earth resolve. So it looks like at the end of the turn, we're gonna see a Grimm Search. Yeah, that Glinda is not very effective. I can imagine we're probably gonna see a Piper or an Etna. Could see a massive board lockdown with an Etna from the opposite side. Oh, a Cheshire Cat. Also that, based on what his draws are, he probably wants to be able to shore up a defense and possibly draw into some of his other spells. Because the thing is, a Purifying Fire. I believe Etna is... I don't know if Etna is a human or not off the top of my head. So Purifying Fires, I don't know if that would be effective. It's outside of Thunder range. Like I said, it's whoever plays the last lockdown thing. Whoever plays the lockdown card last in this match, in this sense, wins. So. Cheshire Cat coming out. Thinking about whether or not to play that Oz. So yeah, we do see that Oz come out. Looks like he's gonna grab a Thunder. Kind of punishment. Probably hoping to try to possibly deal with one of those Etnas if he decides to try to swing in again. Cosmo is keeping a track of time. We're very quickly approaching time on the round, at least if I can recall correctly, because this game did go into time. So I think Cosmo was trying to pay attention because the other top 4 match was Josh versus the Abdul guy, who ended up taking first at the event, and that match was over, unfortunately, very quickly. because Abdul has advantages over Oddgrim. So we see that other Tinkerbell, it looked like got used for a Grimm search. I don't think now would be the best time to play that Etna because there's not too much for him to lock down on the board. But it is always nice to have it in your possession, at least right now, so that you can use it if you need it. The other thing to note is that this Tinkerbell is currently at 1200. He's got 2 Etnas that are awake and allowed to attack stuff. Yeah, so something else got pitched for the other Etna search. Again, no spells, which puts him in a pretty tight bind. He knows about that crime and punishment. So he doesn't want to swing in with his Etnas right now, because his Etnas will have to then untap something. Well, you know, and then die, and then things will untap. So, see, thought about playing the Etna to re-lock down everything. So I think he was confirming whether 2 things can lock down the same thing. I think that would have been my question there is whether or not those kinds of questions can be asked, because it kind of informs play. But long day, and I could be completely wrong. It looked like he was already going to be doing that anyway, so how much that informed play really doesn't make that much of a difference, I don't think. Just an interesting kind of idea. I think he also did it so that he didn't have to worry about the crime and punishment, so that he could swing in with both of those Etnas and then just have his damage done. And still have everything locked down. So 14-14 is the strength of that Tinkerbell. If I'm in Yang's shoes, I'm gonna take the Tinkerbell hit. Like, I'm gonna block those Etnas. I don't want to take damage and have to discard cards. It's just not a good idea at this point. Does decide to block. Swings in with the first Etna. See a block. Swing in with the other Etna, which is going to go through, putting Sia down to 17, and he's going to have to discard a card. So now even if that crime and punishment gets used and kills something, all 3 of his creatures are still locked down. Discards that Hunter and Black Forest. At this point, it's really not important. So he does decide to cast the crime and punishment. Probably, I can imagine the Etna is really not important right now. The Tinkerbell is kind of the bigger threat. Confirming what is being locked down by what. So he goes ahead and crimes and punishments on the Tinkerbell because he knows that that's the biggest like damage output right now. And if he can throw up any kind of a defense, then he might be able to bring it back. So he pitches the 100 Black Forest that he just searched. I can tell him, oh, a Cheshire Cat. Just gonna try and shore up. Didn't know how many more Etnas he ran. His opponent has no hand at this point. So a full board casted Etna could again be that moment where whoever plays the last Etna wins. Oh, what is that one face down card? Oh, that's the other Tinkerbell. So he does have one Tinkerbell, but Sai doesn't know that. So we see a Cheshire Cat. Gotta pick a card to go back on top of your deck. Yes, he realized his mistake. Good. Plays the Tinkerbell. There's a lot going on right now. It's very tense. Big life point difference between Sai and Brian. Has seen almost no burn this entire game. It's kind of even disheartening a little for Sai to not see that burn package. Then again, the burn package isn't necessarily very effective against Oddgro Grimm based on how Oddgro Grimm starts up. He's going to ditch his other Tinkerbell, possibly to grab a Glinda, maybe? But he's already pitched the Glinda, so I don't know how effective that's going to be. At this point, if he has a Rapid Decay in his hand, I don't think there's any possible way for Brian to have lethal this turn, but he can make it very close. But he decides to do none of it, and he just attacks. So you see a double Thunder during the upkeep. Oh, maybe in response to the Oz? So double Thunder in response to the Oz before he does the Oz search. I wish I could see that, because before his opponent gets to before he has to untap, before his opponent possibly searches for a Dreams of Wonderland, like that, to be able to save the Etna and then just simply replay it. Actually, yeah, this is a good play. As I said, Sai seems to be in a very tight bind here, where Brian played the lockdown card last and has been able to kind of maintain the advantage that generates for a very long time. So he did grab that Rapid Decay, so he's going to be able to answer that Tinkerbell. Now he's going to get at least one Etna attack in this turn if he decides to swing in. But he does know that Crime and Punishment is a thing, and he doesn't have a guaranteed lock on all of Yang's creatures anymore. So the question is, what is he going to do about that? And I believe while they were talking about this, time on the round was actually called. So as it stands, Brian is turn 0. And we have 3 turns from there to end the game. So knowing that that Oz is going to get to untap, he goes ahead and just uses one of the Etnas to kill it, and then in an attempt to swing in, he baits out the Cheshire Cat. So this pushes Sia into being turn 1, so it'll go Sia, Brian, Sia. And at the end of that point, while in traditional matches in Swiss, if a player hasn't been determined in Game 3 in time after 3 turns, then it ends in a draw. And a winner being determined has to be someone hitting 0 life or running out of cards. You can't just have higher life points than your opponent. However, in top, if you go into time after 3 turns, it does check for life, and whoever has higher life is the winner at that point. It might be that it is 5 turns. It might be 5 when it gets into top 8. I don't have the document in front of me right offhand. I'm fairly certain it's still 3, but it could potentially be 5. See that Telefairy Tale? Probably just an effort to get out. Maybe some draw power with a Cheshire Cat. Yep, he wants to be able to draw into some cards because he's really feeling the pressure right now. Sitting at 17 life in time. He's gotta try to close that distance because he knows that even if he just tries to stall out, that Brian will win at this point. So he needs to draw cards as opposed to get something like Piper, because Piper will not be able to do much for him. Another Cheshire Cat. Another Telefairy Tale. Dropping those Firestones. Another Cheshire Cat. Just a simple hope to draw into something that he can use to close the gap. Sign to the future. Just go ahead and throws that face down. So it's turn 1. Go to Brian, who is now turn 2. So this is Brian's last turn. During the standby phase, he's going to bounce, do a Grim Search. Imagine to probably try and grab, I don't really know what he wants to grab at this point. Maybe a Cheshire Cat. I mean, it's his last turn, so I feel like Oz, because you can't target any of those Cheshire Cats. Oz to try to grab a burn. I don't really know. Looks like he's going to go ahead and try and grab a Cheshire Cat himself to potentially wall up just in case something goes horribly wrong and Sia is able to make a swing back, which is a very fair play to make. He really wants to secure that trip to top 2 at this event. So throwing a wall up for his opponent's last turn is a good idea. It is something that can be very effective. I did it several times going into my game 3s throughout the day, the 2 draws I have. I had more life than I actually played Brian and drew against Brian. We were in game 3. I actually had higher life, and I went into that kind of stall mode as soon as it went to time, because I knew I couldn't kill. So my goal at that point in time became just draw. Just draw it, because I can't kill you. We each have 1 win, so a draw is better than a loss on my record. So let's just go ahead and just throw up a wall of Cheshire Cats, confirming that I'm gonna get the draw. And I did it against Chris Durand, actually. In round 2 we played the mirror as well. So I did the same thing. I was up on life. We went to game 3. There was no way I was going to be able to get lethal, so I just started throwing up Cheshire Cat after Cheshire Cat after Cheshire Cat to stay above dying, to get that draw, because the draw is 1 point as opposed to a loss, which is no points. So you know there's that sign of the future, and as it stands right now, the second that Brian plays a card, plays a monster, so I will be able to activate that. The very second that Sia plays a monster. Well, and that monster resolves. So like, if he plays Cheshire Cat, as soon as the Cheshire Cat's enter ability effect goes off, then he'll be able to activate Sign of the Future, or Oz with the search, or anything like that. He will be able to do it. So he does Dreams of Wonderland to bounce the Piper. This will also trigger Sign of the Future. Sign of the Future says when your opponent controls 3 or more monsters than you. Try to decide whether or not he even wants to play it or swing in or what he has to do. The interesting thing to note out here is Sia's going to be top decking, and he has a Piper in his hand that won't be able to attack. And there's a 2,000 life point difference. There is literally, unfortunately, at this point in time, there is literally nothing that that he can do, that Sia can do to close this game out. Being in time, as it were. Because at the end of Sia's next turn, it's going to check life to see who wins, and Brian has a much higher lead. So I think Brian is going to still try and go for lethal for that kind of like respect, try to actually win it. But unfortunately, there is no way for Brian to win at this point. So the Sign of the Future is going to trigger. Both of the Etnas are going to return. Dreams of Wonderland. To return the Etna that was just attacking back to the hand. Tinkerbell is revealed. Bouncing back. The Etna lock is going to go away. That's going to get removed from the game by Sign of the Future. Then he's actually just going to pay 5 to go ahead and just re-lock down that Etna with the Awakening cost. just attempt to swing in, gonna get blocked. Attempt to swing in, it's gonna get blocked. And passes to his opponent. So, as I said, Sia's in top deck mode. He can't attack with anything. He's completely checked out, so he can't Grimm pitch. And there's a 2,000 life point difference. And at the end of this turn, the game's gonna check life to see who wins. So there is no way there's literally no card in the game that can win Sia this game. So he's still gonna draw his card. But just a rough way to kind of end that, having to go into time and just knowing that there's nothing he can do. There's no card in his deck that can let him get that closure. Overall, very solid match from both players. Both these guys played really well, really hard all day. It was good to see them. Good to see them compete and play their hearts out. So yeah, see what he does to kind of end his turn. He grabs a Cheshire Cat. He's already used Thunders that I can, and his Cheshire Cats are getting shuffled. Maybe he's just trying to be silly and play all of his Cheshire Cats in one turn. I don't really know. We'll see. So he plays Cheshire Cat. It's Hello Fairy Tale of Crime and Punishment. Fairy Tale, probably for another Cheshire Cat. So he's just like bringing out the whole team, bringing out the whole team of Cheshire Cats for that one last ride. Draws the 2. See an Oz and a Glinda. At that point, I think Sia realizes that there's nothing really he can do. Oh, there's a Split Heaven and Earth. Unfortunately, that would only kill himself. Even not, it would just... He's going to play 2. Playing Split Heaven and Earth to deal 1,200 damage to himself and 1,200 damage. So final total will be 25 to 5. 25 to 5. Sia with 5 and Brian with 25 at the end of the game. So Sia has lost the game. Brian's going to go into top 2. Top 2 will be over on Force of Will US's page when they get that uploaded, as well as the other top 4 match with Josh versus Abdul. This has been DMO73 commentating, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the match. Let me know what you thought about seeing it go the other way as opposed to when Durand and Sia were playing. As always, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, this is DMO73 signing off.